to another story session, and today we're going to read the story Granny's Cozy Quilt of Memories by Pamela Kennedy, illustrated by Amy Wommer. Remembering grandmother's love through her lasting gift. So there is a note for as well here that you can have a look at in your time. Wonderful. I like the illustrations, really nice, isn't it? Look at the doggy here. And look at that swing. Amy sat on her tire swing and twisted around and around. When the rope was tight, she lifted her feet, and the tire spun in circles. Her hair whipped in the wind, and everything in the yard was a swirl of colours. When the spinning stopped, Emmy felt dizzy. She tried to walk, but she plopped down on the ground. She sat there for a minute, feeling the cool grass under her hands and feet. She remembered how Granny used to wind her up in the swing and then laugh when Emmy wobbled a few steps before falling down. Emmy missed hearing Granny's laugh. Look at that fun that they were having. Emmy saw something blue in the tall grass near the fence. She crept over to it on her hands and knees. Carefully, she parted the blades of grass. It was a little bird's egg. Emmy picked it up and held it in the palm of her hand. If Granny were here, Emmy could take the egg. She would get out her book with pictures of birds and show Amy just what kind had laid the egg. And she would tell Amy how God looked after every little bird that fell and how he loved Amy too. Amy carefully put the egg back in the tall grass. Amy missed being able to share things with Granny. Look at that, lovely. It's a lovely sort of imagination. Amy, time for dinner, Mom called. Come in and wash your hands so you can set the table. Amy got up and went inside. She washed her hands and made bubbles with a bar of soap. She dried her hands, then got the knives, forks and spoons out of the drawer. She put the knife spoon together on the right side of the placemat, like Granny had taught her. She put the fork on a folded napkin on the left side. She got the plates and put them on the placemats too. She remembered some other things Granny had taught her, like how to always thank Jesus for the food they had each day, and how to play hopscotch, and how to make paper boats from folded newspapers. Amy sighed. I miss Granny, she said. Mom came over and sat beside Amy at the table. I miss her too, she said. Will Granny ever come back? Amy asked her mother, snuggling up onto her lap. No, Amy. When someone dies, they don't come back to us. We know Granny is in heaven now, but it's not the same as having her here with us, is it? Even though she's gone, we can still remember all the wonderful things about her, and we can remember how much she loved us too. I have been remembering, said Amy, but it kind of makes me sad. You know, I think I have something that might make you feel better, said Mom. What? Asked Amy. Come on, I'll show you. Amy's mother stood up and took Amy's hand. They walked into the living room. Here, sit on the couch, said Mom. Amy scooted up on the couch, while her mother opened the big wooden trunk in the corner. She took out a box and brought it over to the couch. When she took off the lid and folded back layers of tissue paper, Amy saw a colourful quilt made of lots pieces of fabric. The pieces were stitched together every which way. They were all different colours. You can see the quilt here. It's wonderful, isn't it? Beautiful. Love the colours. It's vibrant. Look at that. Amy's mother opened up the quilt and laid it across her lap and across Amy's lap. This is a crazy quilt that Granny made. She finished it just a few months ago and told me to give it to you when I thought the time was right. I think today is the right time. Amy touched the different pieces of material. Some were shiny, some were smooth, and others were bumpy or had patterns on them. One piece had the outline of a bird embroidered on it. Look at that. That's the bird. The pieces were all sewn together with coloured thread in different designs that looked like zigzags, feather, bird footprint, and even a row of daisies. Why did Granny make this for me? Amy asked, running her finger along a row of shiny gold stitches. I think it was because she wanted you to have wonderful memories of her, said Mom. Every piece of the quilt tells a story about our family, and all the pieces are stitched together with love. Beautiful, wonderful, isn't it? And look at the picture there. Possibly Amy was too little then. Amy looked at the quilt more carefully. What's the story about this piece? She asked, pointing to a smooth piece of ivory sateen. That came from Granny's wedding dress. She married Grandpa more than 50 years ago. Amy tried to imagine Granny as a bride. Look at that. Oh. How about this one? Amy touched a piece of material that had tiny blue and red flowers on it. Mom smiled. I remember that one. Granny made me a dress out of that to wear for my first day of school. Look at that. It had a collar with a red trim on it, and I wore a red ribbon in my ponytail that day. Amy looked at Mom. You had a ponytail? Yep. And it was even longer than yours. Mom laughed and gave Amy ponytail a tug. Look at that. That's fun. What about this piece? Amy ran her finger over a soft piece of yellow fabric. That's one of my favorites, Mom said. It's from the blanket Granny made for me to wrap you in when we brought you home from the hospital after you were born. Look at that. I remember this, Mom said, pointing to a square of dark blue wool surrounded with red satin stitches. What was it? Amy asked. It's from Granny's nurse's cape. It was dark blue and it had bright red lining. Granny used to wear it in the cold weather when she visited sick people in their homes. She brought them medicine and listened to their troubles, and many times she prayed with them to ask God for help and healing. When I was a little girl, I used to borrow it, put it on over my play clothes, and pretend I was a nurse to my dolls and stuffed animals. I didn't even know Granny was a nurse, Amy exclaimed, imagining her Granny dashing out in the snow to take care of someone in need. Amy examined the quilt more carefully. Hey, Mom, I know where this came from. She pointed to a bright piece of cotton. It was green and had red and yellow apples on it. This is from Granny's favourite apron. She used to wear it when we made her cookies together. Remember how she let me put the candy buttons on the fronts of the gingerbread boys and girls? Look at that. Amy could almost smell the spicy cookies baking. Amy and her mother sat on the couch and talked about the stories in Granny's quilt for a long time. I have a good idea, Amy said after a while. Her mom smiled at her. What? Amy stood on the couch and wrapped the quilt around her mother's shoulder. Then she sat close to her mum and pulled the edge of the quilt around her own shoulders. She leaned her head against her mother and smiled. Let's pretend that Granny is giving us a big hug. And this is just what they did. Look at that. Very nice, beautiful, lovely and cozy. And Granny is there. After that, every time Amy missed Granny, she would wrap up in her quilt and think of all the memories Granny had put into it just for her. And sometimes she felt like Granny was right there with her, holding her tight and loving her just like she used to do. What a wonderful story. Hey, and this is a little bit about Pamela Kennedy and Amy Wommer. It's lovely, it's wonderful. I like the way they kind of put the quilt around the dog here as well. It's heartwarming, isn't it? Thank you very much, guys, for listening to it. And I'll come back again with another piece very soon. So let me find one that would go in for our next video. Keep watching, and if you can, please subscribe so that whenever we are loading the content, you have an idea and you know that the story has come. Thank you very much for staying with us.